We're a little bit after the full hour, so I will get us started. Welcome to the Agile Strategy Meetup Group. My name is Morten Elvang. Today we have Kristian and Markku visiting from in parallel to give your perspective on strategy and particularly what you can do with the idea of a digital strategy. So really looking forward to that and asking the same questions to the two of you like we have asked for everyone. Where do you see the field of strategy going? Any particular advice for someone who would be new to the field? And other than that, we will follow the same format, 30 minutes for you, and then 30 minutes for questions and answers. Anything you like us to know before we get going?
Oh, I think that's the part of the presentation, isn't it?
Absolutely. So take us away. Just testing. Welcome.
Thank you so much. So, the way we're going to divide the work is that Markku is going to explain why we created the company, and I'll try to explain our view in AI in relation to the strategy. So maybe starting with Markku's words.
Yeah, let's keep it short. So my name is Markku. Hi, everyone, and maybe an origin story. So we independently and jointly have been scaling quite large, fast-growing businesses, and we found that even if you have a perfect strategy at any given time, the strategy ages very ungracefully. And what's even more difficult is the strategy execution of the strategy. So it's a people-to-people problem, and when you have smart individuals with high incentives, they tend to kind of optimize the local maxima. So with our experiences, we kind of started to think that what could we do in terms of modeling strategies. And long time ago, we decided to start building graphs, and we kind of found out that those have a lot of friction and complexity that nobody wants to use. So once the kind of large language models and other AI technologies came to an early maturity, we started to play around with different models and ontologies and kind of found a way how we can make large language models read instead of write. They do a bit of a writing in our solution as well. But that's basically an origin story. First, we started to model strategies, but the more we researched the topic, we kind of saw our opportunity in strategy execution. And what connects strategy to performance is an operating model. So we are doing a software upgrade to operating models for large, complex distributed enterprises undergoing rapid change. So maybe that's a kind of a teaser what's about to come.
Indeed. So we do think that there is opportunity for rethinking the way strategy works, and essentially this presentation tries to capture our thinking around that. The headline is that we do believe, just like many of the other guests that have spoken before us in Morten's Agile Strategy forum, that there needs to be a more adaptive, more continuous way of correcting how do we achieve our results. For us, that term is adaptive strategies. And indeed, like Markku mentioned, our solution for adaptive strategies is an AI native intelligent operating model. But why we would love to talk through our thinking and background on AI in particular relates to why do we believe that there is a special time and place for this sort of an approach. And that's going to be largely the focus of the presentation, and we'll cover a more refined definition of how do we actually deliver adaptive strategies in concrete. And hopefully that'll be useful and interesting. And it's been humbling to listen to the speakers in this forum. We've not had Sanchu, but nearly anyone who's anyone has stepped on the stage, and it would be false to claim that like we have the brightest and the most clear thoughts on the future of the strategy. On the contrary, I feel like every speaker on the series has been super inspiring for us and our way forward. And there's many reasons why we should be thinking about the strategy execution evolving. There's definitely the world we are living in that keeps changing, that is causing pressure for the current ways of strategy execution. And there are, as have been number of times presented, many statistics that proclaim how badly we're doing in the current ways of working. But those were not really the starting points for us with Markku when we started to build an AI native operating model. Really, what we found inspiration through our past was that indeed AI can be a transforming power for this discipline as well. And I'll try to make a case for why that is so and how it impacts the way we look at strategy. And fundamentally, if we think about the history of why strategic shifts are happening, most often the reason why we need a new strategy is due to the fact that the environment has changed irreversibly due to the changes in capabilities. There may have been a better way of servicing customers or delivering value or cheaper way to do something. And that calls for a disruption for the marketplace, which requires us to react. And strategy execution as a practice is no different. Even though we're not an industry, we still are subject to all of the capability shifts, as history proves in all of the great technology transformations. And we believe that this is a sort of one of those points where artificial intelligence in particular has evolved to a point where the way we work changes. And as the way we work changes, it means that we have to reconsider the way we do things. Stephen Wolfram, a famous inventor, the developer of MATLAB, said recently that we're at the end of knowledge work. And for an industry or practice as we are with the strategy, I think this would be interesting challenge to reconsider what it means for our practice and certainly has been driving a lot of our thinking. So we're facing this capability quantum leap, artificial intelligence, and that's a driver for us in the ways we've been rethinking how strategy will be in the future. Now, to see the future, what I've learned in my past in innovation practice is that there's always a native perspective for any given new technology that is reshaping the way we work. The same is true for artificial intelligence. There may be old ways of working that we want to adjust the new capability into, but fundamentally, to be able to reap the most benefits, we have to be native for the capability. And just to make a couple of examples to drill home the point, when we got cars, we were solving a problem of horses getting tired, and we invented this beautiful invention of combustion engine. But to facilitate that technology natively, we needed roads and gas stations to be able to travel anywhere and anytime. And the same phenomena has happened for every single quantum leap of technology. It happened with internet, where we were solving for the problem of libraries having limited access of supply and opening hours and such. The better library was internet. We were able to build a stack of technologies that eventually led us into being able to access and learn anything, anytime. But to be native with this technology, we needed to create terminals that were able to sort of interact with these protocols and cabling and networks that were able to deal with the traffic. Same happened with mobile. So when mobile as a capability was built into existence, we had to approach it in a native approach. Suddenly you saw a whole bunch of networks and smartphones, again, terminals, come into existence and shape the way we communicate. No longer did we need cables, but these technologies. And as long as we used those technologies in a native way, we were able to reach anyone at any time. And the point is, AI is similar. It's capable of doing the knowledge work, the heavy lifting that as humans are doing when we are thinking. It can be a great partner. Through deep learning, we've invented ways to find the most meaningful content and help individuals in their work. But it requires a lot of data and compute. And data and compute in particular is required in a very specific format. It holds the potential of being a support for humans in understanding anything, the very core skills that are required for our practice. But AI is different. Unlike the physical innovations of the past, it scales in bits. And what that means is that there's opportunities today for acquiring data storage as well as compute power far beyond what has been ever before. This chart outlines the price of a single terabyte of storage. It has sunken below the levels of anyone being able to access and afford data storage. It no longer is the question it was in the 90s when you had to pay a lot of money for a 64 gigabyte memory drive for your computer. And the same has happened for compute. So the chart here explains how the transistor count has increased in different CPUs that are processing computing in our data centers or computers or mobile phones. And this evolution that has started from the 70s has continued consistently, so that like every 2 years we have doubled the computing power. And given that data and compute make the means for deep learning to succeed and AI to perform, we have seen results like this, where the power of computing and data combined with deep learning has created reasoning models and capabilities of ChatGPT revisions, where we can nearly have human quality of evaluation capabilities for knowledge work that are at our disposal. So this is the big shift, and with nearly infinite amount of bits for nothing available at our disposal, we are facing an evolution of all kinds of knowledge work being sort of like supported with AI in some shape or form. And what in particular related to the strategy execution and strategy as a discipline for me and Markku was inspiring is that not only we found that AI systems can write and summarize and contextualize and generate information, which is one half of the job, but more to the point, we were excited that this technology can be used to process and understand information at scale with much less cost and time than employing a human consultant requires, but nearly with the same quality. And this inspirational capability shift became what got us started. So the thesis of ever continuing the amount of data and compute power and ever increasing affordability and speed of being able to reason, coupled with the fact that computers obviously can continuously and real time perform the tasks that are given to them, was one of the reasons why we wanted to start an AI native operating model. So what could it mean? 2 years ago, when we were incorporating this company, we were thinking about this question, and one of the framings for finding the future that has been successful in the past is to think what would happen in the world of perfect technology. Cars, if there would be perfect technology where you would have the speed of light and zero cost and all of that, would take you immediately to anywhere you want without any gas consumption. It would essentially be a teleportation machine. Internet, on the other hand, would be fast. There wouldn't be latency. It wouldn't cost anything. There wouldn't be mean jerks online. That obviously is impossible, but it would be infinitely secure. Similarly, on the same pattern, maybe mobile would never die in terms of battery. Arguably, every other kind of innovation nearly has been accomplished by human history. But it is an interesting question. What would happen for strategy execution in the world of perfect technology? And when we looked at the opportunities for this space, what we came to realize is that when you interview with business leaders and strategy professionals, it's not so much about like the information not being there. On the contrary, we're starving for wisdom, as the famous quote goes. It's not about not having access to information. And that's why what we wanted to build was a system that would support human in its capacity of not only writing what needs to be done, but reading at scale, but with the fraction of time and cost that is required. And in other words, like to answer the question of like what's our view of the perfect strategy execution with AI native technology, we're very close to what John Boyd's visionary observe, orient, decide, and act framework was at the time. John Boyd was a famous fighter pilot, American in the time of Korean War. And he crafted this to solve problems in an emergent fashion. Obviously, in a military setting, in a competitive battle, the split decisions, seconds that you require for making decisions is sort of a different environment. But one can argue that, like, ideally, in a perfect technology world where computer and AI systems would be perfectly supporting humans in their sort of work in aspiring to find the right direction at every level of the organization, something like this would happen. The observations would be collected and shared. There would be automatic orientation where AI can be a companion for finding the right direction. Human obviously would pull the trigger, do the decision. Sometimes human would lead the activity as well. Sometimes the machine would go for it, but there would be a perfect feedback loop. Now, thinking about the environments where all of us, no doubt, have been leading or practicing strategy and execution as a leader or as a strategy execution professionals, it is easy to understand how impossible to scale and manage this is without novel technologies, without novel tools. It is utterly complicated to get different layers of the enterprise working together. But what our dream with involving AI native operating model is to be able to achieve this opportunity. Being able to provide real-time situational awareness and clear priorities for everyone. And based on the experimentations that we've been able to do with novel means of collecting information about the progress of the organization, as well as utilizing technologies for helping rank different tasks, we're getting very close to that point and are getting great results. So that's where I would love to spend the second half. What does this mean? AI native approach for strategy execution for us as industry. What we, in addition to AI as a native approach, were inspired with Markku was the dilemma of strategy market gap. What we mean by that is the way we execute strategy today is problematic also from the point of view that when we get started with the strategy execution, nearly always there's something of a big shaking surprise, as my friend Morten would call it, where the world changes in some shape or form, and we need to adapt again to stay on track. What I mean by that is that the sequential approach for strategy execution is almost deemed to fail, and what we would aspire to see is somewhat of a different approach where strategy and execution are working in parallel. That's why we named the company In Parallel. And right now, it really takes a lot of effort to recorrect course, and either it means installing frameworks or operations or hiring consultants or a few. But fundamentally, the vision for the AI native operating model would be different. In the world of perfect technology, there would be better ways to course correct constantly when that strategy market gap widens. It might mean that we would be able to understand the priorities better, or it might mean that we would understand the situational awareness better. And as AI can be a partner for reading and understanding information, we can build a system that is able to do such things. And the problem with the AI approach, of course, for anybody who's been dabbling with the technology, is that we do need to have a form where AI doesn't do the work in a standalone and isolation, but rather becomes a partner for humans. So when we got started, we considered these aspects of what is the right approach for human and AI to have an interface, what is the right way for AI to have the right sort of data, because AI systems like the data in a certain way. And through those adventures, as we studied tens of thousands of strategies with the help of AI in a process which we call the codification, where we create a composition of how the strategy is structured, we believe we found something of a breakthrough that helps find and evaluate priorities for different strategies. So maybe to summarize and answer Morten's question, we would love to share the framework, which we call the GPS, here today as our view for how strategy could be expressed in the world of AI native operating models. What GPS stands for is goals, problems, and solutions. Really, fundamentally, the idea here is that this is a taxonomy or ontology that can help guide the AI to become a partner for humans in sharing some of the reasoning burden, but in a way that is, again, understandable for how humans think about strategy and its execution. The goals, problems, and solutions essentially represents a journey for achieving a certain objective with certain key results. If we borrow the terminology from the famous OKR framework. What it introduces, however, as an additional layer is a layer which we call obstacles or problems. And the point here is to be able to, in real time, identify and find what is the most important and impactful route to achieving the outcomes that are needed to be achieved. It can be AI identifying that there is an external market crisis taking place that needs reaction. It can be AI evaluating that certain activities internally don't have resources or are falling behind the intended schedule. Whatever it is, it gives a framework where we can evaluate what is the highest priority obstacle and therefore what are the highest priority solutions to achieve the outcome. This framework also is something that we can cascade all across. So one team's solution becomes another team's goal. And that's a way for us to control and manage dependencies that often become complicated in strategy execution across the organization. And again, in this format, the AI really can go into reasoning loops and simulate different paths to achieving the outcomes and propose different configurations for allocating capabilities and so forth. But fundamentally, the main application is really to find the best path to achieving the goal with the available resources. And as we've been experimenting with this framework, especially in a lot of environments where OKRs have been used, we've found many applications which are welcome additions for strategy execution professionals, where we bridge the formulation and the execution in a nice way. Not only is there opportunities for being able to prioritize and cascade as we outlined or manage dependencies, but fundamentally it becomes the clue between what is happening in the market versus what is happening in the execution. It also becomes a lens through which we can quickly evaluate if indeed our current solutions or execution plans are meeting the true problems that we are facing. Most of the famous strategies that have been successful have been built around this principle of achieving a goal and overcoming a problem. If you think about Tesla's famous three-step strategy, the scarce resource that Tesla didn't have was money, to build a machinery that was competitive against Volkswagen and Toyota and the others. And the way they approached that problem of scarce resources was to build a roadster, a smaller product that was higher price point, better margins. And as the strategy outline goes, with those proceeds, they were able to finance the sedan. With those proceeds, they were able to finance the cheaper model. And therefore, the strategy was very successful, being able to approach the goal, overcoming the most important problem at any given time. So essentially, through this sort of a mechanism, there is an opportunity of creating a compass and a nervous system to help with AI, the organization to self-correct at any given level. Having this GPS aided with AI at the sort of crossroads of that observation and orienting process, which we're using several data sources outside and internal the company. It gives great powers for the leadership teams to be able to lead forward. Essentially, the product that we are building is built on these principles and fundamentally is designed to help align strategy execution with the actual realities of the market and provide a platform where you can continuously optimize the roadmap. Now, we're still very early on our journey, but we're getting great response, especially for this GPS framework that we were sharing in ways where we haven't really thought in advance how precisely the problems can be evolving. One strategy leader was mentioning that 2 months into their strategy cycle, something happened in their market environment which required all hands to be on deck. And obviously they had to react. But when you think about your past and in enterprise environments, these sorts of events happen constantly. So imagine the power where you would have a shared system where you can sort of help everybody move along to the right priorities, just like a school of fish or a flock of birds. That's our mission. That's our view for strategy. We do believe that the future opportunity of doing something valuable for strategy execution is really about helping organization find the right priorities. And that's really truly the exciting thing about in this day and age where we live today, using AI as a superpower for the middle management and leadership team, not only on certain moments of the QPR process or annual planning to check if you're doing the right things, but all the time and in real time. Happy to take any questions or have a conversation as needed.
Thank you, Kristian. Let's hear if there are any questions or comments.
Hi, yeah, hi, I've got one. Ken here.
I can. Go ahead.
I'm actually on a similar path to you guys, actually, I have to say. And I'm also building like an application also which uses AIs, and it's a very similar framework to yours, actually. It's also based on goals, problems, and solutions.
Amazing.
So
it's becoming a thing now.
Yeah, so I've been on it for quite a long time, actually, but it's been quite a profound change in my thinking. It's taken me to some dark places, actually, psychologically, I have to say. So it's a fundamental shift in the way you see the world when I've gone down that problem-solving path. So I've been on it for several years, and we're building an application. So at some point, happy to show and tell what we're doing, but it was quite difficult to construct an application and make it very, very simple. It's just based along the same sort of stuff, goals, problems, solutions, a very, very simple framework.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That sounds exciting to hear, Ken. The sort of like findings for like I see Tom is on the line. So obviously it was super exciting to hear Tom speak in this forum as well. And I don't think what we are proposing here is very different from what Tom's great work has been about. Like Tom linked a speech that is available in YouTube as well. And so, we're definitely not claiming and coining goals problem solutions. Perhaps we're just making a statement that like we found this sort of being the sort of like common factor for a whole bunch of the strategies, and where the problems have been missing, it still creates a lot of value. So we have had many customer cases where we've done an AI audit for what the strategy currently says. And we found things that are sort of like making the people's face go pale because there may have been some environmental things that like are not being addressed right now.
Yeah. I think for me the kind of interesting shift was when I really started to think about the kind of nature of problems and how they emerge, and how the kind of I really struggled with the actual problem concept, right? How to visualize that. And the trick was, the kind of thing that made me to sort of, I think, innovate a bit better on it, or progress, was I created like a metaphor, an abstraction around the concept of a problem, which made me perhaps gave me a cognitive trick, actually. So I think that was the key enabler for me.
Would love to hear your talk about that, like, or go deeper, definitely.
Yeah, could you tell some more, Ken? I'm super interested as well. In what sense?
I think if maybe people got other questions, we could have I'm actually cooking dinner for my kids at the moment, actually. So I'm going to have to.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
I've got two daughters, but they're going to play hockey. One's going to play hockey, so I'm going to go on mute, actually. But we'll talk about it another time. But I'm happy. Yeah, I'm really excited to see, because obviously with what I've been doing, and when you see this kind of thinking, it just it resonates, and it's sort of also kind of I think, oh, this is great.
I would love to also hear how you think about the term problem. So we've been going back and forth with the team, and that's why interchangeably we were mentioning also obstacles there. But fundamentally, the thing we are coining, which we do claim full credit, is strategy market gap. And perhaps that has been presented before as well. But a lot of us come from a background where lean startup and sort of like the evolution in applying lean methodology for product development really sort of like came into concrete when we discovered problem solution fit. I was part of Nokia, where we built technology where we were finding technologies first and then trying to find a problem. But like, it's really when a product fit meets the problem, then you have a magical product market fit. And we stumbled upon the same principle with the strategy market gap. When do you have strategy market fit? Well, probably then when you achieve the goal and meet the problem, and that's why we settled on that.
Yeah,
thanks. I'll go off now, guys, but I'll keep listening in as I can. Okay, and otherwise I'll catch up with the video later. So we'll catch up. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
There's a couple online. So Tom Gilbert is asking more detail on how do we articulate goals, how do we quantify all values. I've read enough Tom's work to know the answer, which is stakeholder value. So obviously goals can come in different forms. The framework as we define it and as the ontology or the platform treats them can have different stakeholders as the recipient of the value, and then there can be multitude of different measures, as we call them, to achieve that value. And that's something where we wanted to keep a bit of flexibility on. For Jacin's, I hopefully don't butcher the name. What are the major problems you are facing implementing and using AI for adaptive strategies? What type of data is needed for it? And how about minimizing AI hallucinations for more accurate results? So anybody who's been working with generative AI in the past year knows how difficult using generative AI for enterprise applications is. The ChatGPT experience that we are all familiar with is deceivingly simple and elegant. Unfortunately, or fortunately, when you use it for enterprise context, you have to get everything right. And there's several strategies how we approach this. Definitely hallucinations and understanding of the domain is a problem, but we have what we call the model garden. So we have at any given point for customer deployment, we have 5 to 6 different models that are working in tandem. Some are monitoring other models and providing what is called evals or evaluations for performance. That is one helpful strategy. In addition, we are grounding the sort of models that are performing different tasks to knowledge graph or ontology-based data structures. This has been proven to be one of the more successful approaches for tangling these hallucinations. And in a way, it's also a justification for something like this to be built as a different separate software platform. Because we do believe that like long term, there needs to be a new native format for how strategy lives when and if it won't be in slides and documents. So this knowledge graph that is becoming the grounding truth for the AI is what we believe it will be.
Yeah, and when it comes to hallucinations, multiple purpose-built models and the semantic knowledge graph helps to kind of ground the whole system, the agentic system, to something that is human verifiable. So you can actually go deep into the platform and read what it has been storing. So the explainability is a key factor. Otherwise, nobody would trust the system to kind of put the large enterprise on an autopilot. But there's a lot of different technologies that we've been experimenting and mixing and matching to achieve the results that we are now able to do. And it's a still long way to go.
Maybe I know you want to ask your question directly.
Yeah, I typed it in the chat. So I find the idea as well. Morten introduced me to you, and I find it interesting how you picture this. And in the strategy making, but also execution, one of the things I see people mostly look at their inside world. That already has data. How do you see that you get this in? I mean, you can put everything in AI or get a lot of it out, but it's often about asking the right questions. How do you see that without overloading? And I can give a basic example that I've done in my own work field as an outside getting in, but I think that was this element. But how do you foresee your model doing that?
Yeah. So maybe first on the positioning. So we are not in the strategy formulation business.
No, I know.
There's a industry on its own, and we are not there. But when we start, so the day zero exercise is that somebody drags and drops the management consultancy generated deck or the strategy documentation into a system, and we use ontologies to kind of transform that PowerPoint into a semantic graph. And that becomes the starting point for us to reason about the world. So we use the customer's strategy as a lens to look at data providers that we have partnered up. So let's say there's a large enterprise, for instance, in Finland, building rubber boots. So we kind of start fetching information with agents about the rubber boots, addressable market, potential competitors, and so forth. So we are not generating strategies as such, holistic strategies. And then we deploy that and we look at internal operating environment and how there's risks materializing and progress and so forth. So that's what we call situational awareness. And once the strategy market gap starts to diverge, so we assume that your strategy is spot on when you launch that, but over time the market starts to veer off, and maybe it's not as a whole strategy is not as coherent as it could be. So then you need to start planning a potential change, and we have systems to help you to kind of reason about the change, looking at your capabilities, opportunities, competitors, and so forth. So it's a tool to help you to kind of keep the strategy up to date. And as this happens throughout multiple levels in the organization, you will end up having 10, 100,000, 10,000 different transformations or changes happening in those plans. And the technology works a little bit like a GitHub. So we take a plan, you modify it, the stakeholders approve and commit, and then we release it back to the broader audience in the company. So we do temporal versioning of all the data. So the algorithms will adjust the moment it will be published, but you can plan in private. And once you have thousands of those plans, you need to kind of manage the portfolio of those plans and allocate resources and set other goals. So that's kind of the tool set that we are building, and currently the product that we are launching is basically the first steps to take our customers on that journey.
Okay, thank you. We would like to see more. It's interesting. Yeah.
We're happy to show. Like let's connect and we can show you around. But like we are not many people think that okay, I'll press a button and it knows everything about my company and will make a better strategy, and you don't need to spend money on BCG or Bain or McKinsey. That's not what we are doing. We are taking the board approved strategy and using that as a starting point to kind of help to deploy it effectively. So it's more strategy execution than strategy formulation.
Yeah, thanks, Markku.
Thank you.
Any more questions, comments? I have a question, Markku, because I hear you say it's the board-approved strategy, but you also mentioned that you have aids to keep it updated. And there was an article by Martin Reeves and his colleagues, so they had actually been studying what builds profitability in organizations. And over the past few years, the contribution from unpredictable external factors on profitability has actually been increasing, what I call surprises. Yeah. So isn't it like a little bit of coin with two sides? If you start making modifications, when is that actually a brand new strategy that needs to be board reapproved, or when is it more like an adaptation to what hits you from
short answer. That's why we have a governance model in the roadmap. It kind of depends on the level, right? So if it's a larger transformation, obviously it's gonna be on a board level. If it's lower, maybe in the organization, adaptation on how certain goal is executed towards, then maybe there's a less of a board involvement, a more common sense or managerial approval. So it varies. And the trigger for those surprises, let's say something radically happens, Trump says the word tariffs or something changes on the market, we kind of provide signal that, hey, maybe you should look into this, or these risks are now feeling elevated. So it's a early warning system and a shared situational awareness system. And then when you do decide to execute a change or plan for a change and execute that change, then it's about coordination, synchronization, communication, and complexity management. So that's kind of the tooling that we are providing in that regard.
Very well.
But everybody will get surprises. That's given. So
I had one more question. You talked about the intelligent operating model, which, if I heard you correctly, you described as like a software-driven way of operating companies. Would you be able to tell a bit more? How does that actually work? What's in that concept?
So it's more like a positioning and almost like a product vision for us, that over time we aspire to provide tooling for strategy process, that post formulation you have the situational awareness, planning, collaborative planning, dynamic portfolio management, governance, and maybe scenario planning. And once those modules are created and delivered, it kind of creates a scope which kind of covers the typical operating models in enterprises. So structure of the organization, key roles, maybe high level kind of a processes. We are not aspiring to be a process execution platform. There's better tools out there already, but kind of at the leadership system that you can kind of manage and deploy your strategy in an effective way and look at risks and so forth. So that's a big part of the operating models that connect strategy to performance. And kind of our ambition is to have a tool set that can deliver that experience, but we are not quite there yet. So it is consists of multiple products that work together on the same platform.
Thank you. Any more questions, comments? So then maybe just questions of a bit of a different nature for the two of you. In working with your in parallel system, what's been surprising you the most? Ken was very generous to talk about him double clicking on problem solving before he went back into cooking. For the two of you, what's been your biggest learning around the idea of strategy in the process that you have been through?
Well, I think for me it's I would probably go like our vision for what needs to be built hasn't changed all that much in this 2 years. Or if we're strictly speaking, like the first time that we met with Markku, we kind of had this idea in the pocket. The technology wasn't ready back then, but the technology vision hasn't changed. How this is to be manifested and what are the entities that will gain most value in the age of intelligent operating model. That has been surprising, and in particular, this is a problem that has been widely accepted. And there's this one famous VC, Sequoia Capital, that is publishing useful advice for startups like us to sort of like discover the journey to a product market fit, which I referred to earlier. And one of the struggles for companies trying to do something new is the fact that everybody accepts the problem. And I feel like that's been most surprising thing for at least me, discovering when you talk to the people in charge of this process in enterprises. Everybody acknowledges the problem, of course, but everybody accepts it as well.
Yeah.
Like it's almost accepted to a point where you're not allowed to even contest that, and that's been surprising and sad.
Yeah, I've actually had the same surprise, and I remember Patrick Hoverstad. I don't know if you witnessed his presentation or listened to it afterwards, but he was talking about that quite boldly and say that, I mean, with success degrees in single digits, how can you even think of this as something that's working?
Yeah.
So I'd be just curious, what further reflections do you have that? How come that we seems to have this chronic almost dysfunction that
I mean like I think like I can link the article from Sequoia on that sort of problem as they describe it, but like this happens in many industries where we've learned to accept that the car drives 1,000 kilometers and then you have to refuel it. And once we live with that problem for enough time, like we're not contesting that. Like, why should a car go 10,000 kilometers? It doesn't make any sense. And we have surprisingly many of those sort of like learned behaviors and patterns as humans that we're just comfortable with. We have learned to live around it. And what we are proposing here is to get rid of problems related to resource allocation or dependency management or setting goals and prioritizing work. But we love the meetings. We love to have the investment committees and the processes to synchronize all of us to find ourselves in alignment. And of course, not all of that will go away when we have a perfect partner with AI in helping that. But I sure would hope that a little bit.
Yeah. So maybe I was a little bit slow. So yes, please share that link.
Yeah.
And
for me, it's been quite surprising that how many smart people are content with their kind of a failing strategy execution. Like we have the statistics. Someone yesterday posted 98% doesn't meet expectations, but let's agree that it's between 50 and 90. So, and Fortune 1000 companies spend about $1.7 trillion on capex on annual basis. So it looks pretty disastrous from our point of view. The other surprise has been that very smart people assume that AI can do everything. So that's kind of surprising that when we talk about strategy and AI, some group of people think that, okay, it's just going to take my job and the company will run on autopilot. We are not nowhere near on kind of a AGI type of situation. And what we want to do is just empower people to be more productive and make better decisions. And it's a kind of empowerment tool and not an autopilot. So I think we need to educate people like what's possible and be very realistic about it. Otherwise the hype cycle will just keep going.
So to that, have you seen anything changing around the urgency? And Kristian, it might be buried in the article you just shared, but it's also almost like it's a permanent dysfunction that we have learned to live with. Do you see?
Yeah.
Do you see, maybe you already talked to it, but could you just repeat then? How do you see something now changing that increases the demand or changes the urgency?
Yeah. Well, with the hard fact problem category of new products that we are sort of like facing, there is only one solution, and that's to show the future. And when we've been doing that, then you get really instantly sort of like super excited reactions. Maybe to give you away one part of the product that we are not yet sharing with the broader market is what we call the 1,000 voices. And what that feature concretely does is it can make up to 1,000 calls in a time window of 5 minutes. All the different stakeholders in the organization, all personalized conversations, feels like talking to a human, asking about their problems, their opportunities, and the progress of their current strategy execution initiatives. And in an instant, you create this observation field. You have all the information from different levels of the organization to really face the market. And with that feature, for instance, all we need to do is like show a preview of what that phone call can do, and that leads into instant reaction to immediately be drawn to it.
Thank you. Anything you would like to ask from us, assuming there are no more questions or comments?
Can you shoot it down? Why this would not work?
I'd like to start from Tom. Like Tom, in this sort of picture of GPS framework, was there something lacking, or would you have constructive criticism?
Yeah, no, I think you have the right framework, but there's not enough detail to judge whether it can be shot down. This is common to almost all the philosophies of strategy. They have all the right buzzwords, but in my opinion, my not so humble opinion, they don't have the detail to make it work. For a typical example, they're filled with nice sounding words, and they never quantify their objectives or measure progress towards their objectives. And then you can criticize it because it's not going to work. Yep. You can't achieve highly competitive goals that you don't even know about by accident. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. We didn't want to turn the session into a product demo, but Tom, we can take it offline, and we'll happily show you how the product looks and how it quantifies goals and so forth. So we can
good. I look forward to that, and maybe Morten would invite you back to do exactly that.
Okay, let's hope so.
Let's see.
Invite Morten to the demo.
We can do that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Morten. Was an exciting opportunity.
I think that's a good place to call it, giving maybe everybody a few minutes back. So also in this regard, you could do things more efficient than anyone before you. So that's really appreciated. And thanks a lot for taking your time to join us.
Thank you very much for having us.
Just last question, Kristian. Can we have your slides to share as well?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
A link or a copy, then I can take care of that.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. See everybody around. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.